fun thing. We had somebody in the audience who was inspired by the theme, and we said, she said, "Oh, I have a really short story. I'd like to tell that. Is that time?" So I thought, hey, let's try this. I like surprise stuff. Are we up for that, guys?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, great. Okay, give a round of applause for Michaela.
Hello, I'm Michaela. I'm from the fairly neutral country of Canada. Actually, didn't know the theme. Came an hour late. This has nothing to do with the theme. But when I heard that there was a storytelling evening, I kind of got inspired. I've been doing storytelling for about a year now. I've gotten to travel to places like Hawaii, West Africa, Germany, different places telling these stories. And I've been learning actually full books of the Bible by heart and telling them. Totally different vibe, but I'm not going to apologize for it, even though most Canadians would. And this, probably most of you probably don't have your Bibles, so you couldn't count me on the word-for-word thing, but you can trust me. Again, Canadian. So then Jesus got into a boat. First he was born, 30 years later. He got into a boat, and he crossed the other side of the lake. And a large crowd was gathered there. And as he stepped from the boat, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. And later that evening, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote area, and it's already getting late. Tell the people to go home and buy food for themselves." And Jesus said, "That isn't necessary. You feed them." But Peter said, "We only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And Jesus said, "Well, you give it to them. Give them to me." So he took the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, told the people to sit down on the grass, looked up toward heaven, and blessed them. And then giving it to his disciples, who then distributed it to the people. They all ate as much as they wanted. And afterward, the disciples picked up 12 baskets worth of leftovers. About 5,000 men were fed that day, in addition to all the women and children. And immediately after this, he insisted that his disciples cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. And after sending them home, he went up a mountaintop by himself to pray. And night fell as he was there alone. And meanwhile, his disciples were far from the land, and a heavy storm had arisen with waves and winds. And about 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came towards them, walking on the water. And when the disciples saw him walking on the water, they shouted, "It's a ghost!" But Jesus shouted back, "Don't be afraid. Take courage, it is me." So then Peter said, "Lord, if it is really you, tell me to come to you." Walking on the water? And Jesus said, "Yes, come." So Peter took a step out of the boat and walked on the water toward Jesus. But when he saw the heavy waves and the winds, he became terrified and started to sink and shouted, "Save me, Lord!" And Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him and said, "You have little faith. Why did you doubt me?" And when they climbed back into the boat, the storm calmed. When they crossed the other side of the lake, they landed in the region of Gennesaret. And news of his arrival spread quickly throughout the towns. And spread quickly throughout the towns. And people gathered around to get healed. And they begged him to touch at least the fringe of his robe. And everyone who touched him got healed. Thank you.
We all got surprised really quickly. We all got religion on just now. We didn't know. We didn't ask her any questions, by the way. Sorry, we didn't ask her what she was going to talk about. But that's pretty clever. Like that, you did like a covert James Bond shit on us. All of us were like, "Hey, Jesus was in the room." Like, everybody was like, "Is this?" Did everyone hear? Everyone was wondering if they heard the same thing. She did. Well, I mean, first of all, right? That was like, what was that? It's always great in the Bible. They don't like Satan. Okay. Wow. That was, look, we tried something, guys. We were adventurous. We tried